Billy McFarland was just 21 when he launched his first company. He was young, ambitious, and had a gift for making things sound exciting. Irresistible, even. The company was called Magnisis. For $250 a year, young professionals, mostly millennials trying to cement their status in big cities, would gain access to exclusive parties, celebrity events, and a concierge service that promised to open doors. Networking, nightlife, and curated luxury, all packaged into a sleek black card. It wasn't actually a credit card, it simply linked to your existing one. But whatever, that didn't matter. It looked the part, it felt elite. And it worked, at least at first. Billy secured $1.5 million in investor funding. The buzz was real. But it didn't take long for cracks to form. Users started to realize that Magnisis didn't quite deliver what it promised. Some of the perks fell through, the events were inconsistent, and the comparisons to other real credit card companies' products, well, let's just say they were starting to feel more like copycat than competition. Still, Billy pressed forward. In 2014, he told the press the company had 1,200 members. By 2016, he said 30,000. 2 months after that, 100,000. It didn't quite add up. There were signs, subtle at first, that Billy wasn't being entirely truthful. And that's the part of the story we can't skip. You see, sin rarely shows up in full bloom. It starts small and quiet. Billy didn't wake up one day planning to defraud anyone. He had a real idea, a decent product, and a shot at making it work. But when things didn't grow fast enough, he started fudging the numbers, inflating user counts, overstating success. In other words, he was lying. Lying to protect the image, lying to keep the money flowing, lying to buy time. It probably seemed harmless, necessary even, but it laid the foundation for something much worse, because this wasn't Billy's legacy. Magnisis was just the prelude. Billy had a new idea, and on paper, it was brilliant. It was an app to book music talent directly, cut the middleman, empower artists and fans, and it could have worked, just like Magnisis. But Billy had already shown what he was willing to compromise when things didn't move fast enough. And once you cross that line, it gets easier to cross again. So he needed a way to launch the app in spectacular fashion. Something loud, viral, impossible to ignore. His solution? Not an ad, not a press tour, but a music festival. Not just any music festival, a luxury experience on a private island in the Bahamas. Gourmet food, 5-star villas, beach parties with celebrities, and a lineup of top-tier performers, all to promote his new app. He called it Fyre Festival. Big names signed on, most notably Ja Rule. And the promo campaign, it exploded. A sleek 1 minute and 42-second video hit the internet, featuring models jet skiing, sipping cocktails, and lounging on white sandy beaches. It promised paradise. The video dropped 4 months before the festival. And here's the kicker. It went live before a single contract had been signed, before anyone even knew where the festival would be held. The hype was real. The planning? Not so much. And tickets weren't cheap. Some went as high as $100,000. They promised a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And in one sense, they delivered, but not in the way anyone expected. When guests arrived on the island, what they found wasn't luxury. It was chaos. There were no 5-star villas, just FEMA disaster tents with rain-soaked mattresses. The gourmet meals? A sad slice of American cheese on soggy bread. And the artists? They had pulled out days earlier. What was sold as an opulent weekend getaway turned into a survival scenario. It wasn't Coachella in paradise. It was Lord of the Flies with influencers. And Billy? He was in so far over his head, he might as well have been drowning in the Caribbean Sea he dragged everyone into. How did it get this far? Why wasn't the plug pulled earlier? Why didn't somebody stop it? Because Billy couldn't stop. The sin that started small in Magnisis had grown. Pride, greed, a lying tongue. He'd built a world on illusion. And he was convinced he could hold it all together if he just pushed hard enough, talked fast enough, and raised enough money. By the end, I imagine even Billy believed it might still work. Because sin is a master manipulator. And sometimes its most loyal victim is the sinner himself. And the fallout? It was immense. Billy lied to his investors, he defrauded his business partners, and he scammed thousands of people out of their hard-earned money. And maybe worst of all, he devastated the local Caribbean workers, men and women who spent weeks preparing only to be left unpaid and abandoned. Billy ended up going to prison for nearly 4 years as a result of all this. This wasn't just poor planning, it was unrepentant sin. And sin never stays small, it doesn't stay hidden, and it never stays contained. Sin always reaches farther than you think. It infects everyone around you. It erodes trust. It destroys relationships. It robs communities. It is a plague. Welcome to Plan to Prosper, where we exist to honor God by helping faithful servants steward their finances wisely and build wealth that endures for generations. Logan, it is good to be back for episode 2 of Plan to Prosper. How are we feeling?
Feeling great. Great to be doing it. Quite the story to begin with. And it kind of reminds me of a couple other stories. Like, I think Adam Newman with WeWork, Enron, where they were fudging some numbers and caught, Nikola, where they created the truck. I can't even remember what it was running off, what they were claiming it was running off of, but it ended up being a big lie. And all the ads were kind of set up with camera angles so that it looked like the truck was going, but it was really just going downhill. And so, quite the stories of potential lies.
Right. And I think it's important. These are important lessons. There's obviously plenty of examples of people that were dishonest in their business dealings. And I think it's important to learn lessons from these. Not that anybody that would be listening to this podcast is on the verge of committing this degree of fraud. I wouldn't think. But it's important. The most important thing is recognizing that sin starts small, right? That idea that we don't wake up with the intention of committing some heinous sin. It starts with little things that grow over time. So most of us won't end up like Billy, but his story is a good warning for us all that small sins don't stay small. So that's obviously what we're going to be talking about today. In the first episode, we kind of gave a brief overview of what this podcast is all about, what prosperity is, what planning is. But now, as we kind of move forward, we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty details of things. And I think gritty is probably a good word to describe what we'll be talking about today, because we're talking about sin, and specifically financial sin. So today isn't about guilt. We're not trying to just heap on mounds and mounds of guilt on people, but trying to bring freedom and conviction in a way that maybe opens people's eyes to things that they hadn't thought about before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we go along, we'll probably discuss some of the temptations we've even fallen into. So we're not bringing all of this up as hey, we've got this all figured out.
Right.
But there are things that, as financial professionals, we have noticed.
Yeah, we're obviously not perfect, and perfection is not the goal in the sense that we should be striving to be the best we can be in all areas of our lives. But we're not sitting on. We're not holier than thou. We're working through this in our own lives as well. So I think it's important to address why this question matters. And if you've been a Christian for any length of time, it's obvious why it matters. Is because we don't want to sin. We want to honor the Lord in all things in our lives. And money is no different, because it's not a morally neutral thing. It reflects the condition of our hearts as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the verse in Matthew about where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And just kind of the visual of, where you're keeping your money, your heart almost kind of roots for that. I'm more of the investment guy, so I always kind of think in those terms. So if you think about where your investments are, and we'll get into more specific details of that in later episodes, but you're going to kind of root for those investments to do well. And your heart's going to be in it, so you want to make sure that even that is aligned.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think culture tends to treat money as just it's there, it's necessary. We all need to do it. But it's not a spiritual reality. And I think that's invaded the church too. That there's kind of this mentality of, well, it's not really spiritual to talk about money, so we'll just kind of ignore it. And we don't think that should be the case at all. That Scripture is very clear, as the verse you just mentioned is a great example of that this really reflects your heart. And so if we can in any way shine a light on a potential area of your life today that you hadn't even considered, where you actually might be venturing maybe not fully into sinful territory, but heading in that direction, we would love it if we could shine a light on that and bring us to the forefront of your mind, and you can realize, oh, okay, hold on, I hadn't thought about this before. I need to stop and consider how I can kind of redirect some things so that I'm honoring God in this area of my life as well. I knew a guy who he had a young family, like both of his kids in diapers, and he had a job where he didn't make too much money, but he spent all of his money on his own hobbies. He provided just the bare minimum for his family to survive, and then he would spend the rest of his money just on his own little hobbies that weren't making him any more money or anything like that. And he ended up losing his family over it. His wife divorced him, and it's the sad reality that this can happen to any one of us if we're not careful and we just let this slide. I don't know if you know the statistic, but I think financial problems are the result of a lot of divorces, if not the majority of them.
Number one.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's an important thing. We need to be clear on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into 7 sins. It's just it's the number that we ended up discovering of sinful things to discuss when it comes to your finances. Not the 7 deadly sins or anything like that, but it just so happens that there's 7 of them. So we're gonna get going with the first one, and that is greed. So I'm going to read Luke 12:15, and then I'll turn it over to you, Logan. Jesus is talking here, and he says, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." How does greed impact the way that we view our financial lives?
Yeah, well, I think the other one that kind of immediately pops out is just the 10th commandment. Don't covet anything of your neighbors. But yeah, I think ultimately greed is wanting something that God hasn't provided you with yet, and kind of almost I want to figure out how to get it, even though God hasn't provided me with it, or I really want it, even though it might not be best for me. And so I think that the ways that we see it is kind of the typical keeping up with the Joneses, always trying to kind of make yourself potentially look better than you are, or just working so hard that you're neglecting other things in order to get everything that you want and through because you're coveting. And a lot of times it leads to discontent. I was watching an encouraging video by Scotty Scheffler the other day, where he was talking about how he wins these championships, and then 5 minutes later he and his family are in the car and, all right, what's for dinner? And like he's winning these championships and getting a lot of money, but that can't be it. Right. So yeah, I think with greed, people don't have that perspective, and that's ultimately it. Like I just keep pulling in money so that I can get all this stuff. Yeah,
and I think we've all we think of the dramatic movies or whatever, the like Wolf of Wall Street or the Gordon Geckos of the world. I've never seen those movies, but my understanding is that they're just these greedy guys that are doing whatever it takes to accumulate as much money as possible. I don't know that anybody that would be listening to this would be struggling to that degree of it, but I do think a common way that we struggle with this is like lifestyle creep, right? You get a raise at work, and you immediately start spending the money before you've even gotten your first paycheck from it. You figure out ways that like, oh, now that I've got a little bit more money, I'm going to spend it on this or this that I've always wanted to do. And there's, in some respects, there's nothing wrong with, as your income increases to increase your lifestyle with it. But if it's to the neglect of charitable giving, tithing, if it's to the neglect of your own savings and preparations for the future, that's a problem. It's just this, as you're talking about keeping up with the Joneses, this constant need to either demonstrate and flaunt your wealth or just accumulate as much as you can because you're afraid of the future or whatever it might come. There's another way too, I think, that we all struggle with is kind of a resentment of other people's success, where you see somebody else that gets a raise and you're jealous and you almost begin to resent them for that, as opposed to why didn't I get that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it was one of the last days of college for me. one of the business professors did something with all the graduating seniors in the business department. And I actually think it's technically illegal, but he handed $1 out to everybody, told us to fold it back and forth and then rip it. And to remember the lack of power that dollar had over us, so that we were able to rip it. But in saying all that, I went to school for finance. I jumped right into finance after school. So I've been in this world where people are trying to accumulate and figure out how to do so much with their wealth and kind of look over their shoulder and, ooh, this person's getting a promotion, this person's moving up. How do I do that so that I can keep up with them? I am curious about your story. You've got more of a roundabout way into the financial world. Was there a big kind of moment where you were like, wow, like this is different from where I was coming from?
Yeah, for sure. And I think so. Little backstory. I worked at a church for a long time, and no surprise, I didn't make a ton of money. I was also really young, so I was in my 20s and working at a church, doing music stuff, I was this wasn't explicitly taught in the church, in the church that I was at in particular, but kind of in evangelicalism at large, this notion I think I was getting the impression that pursuing any kind of wealth was wrong. And so almost like a poverty mentality, almost, that it was like holiness was tied to how little money you had. And so I was perfectly content to just make whatever money I made, and I could provide for just the basic necessities, and that was it. I was also single, so I didn't feel like I had this pressure to like provide well for a family or anything at the time. So I was, as a single guy, I didn't really care how much money I made as long as I could eat something and live somewhere. That was good enough for me at the time. But yeah, it kind of the transition into financial services came as a result of getting married and starting to have kids, and kind of coming to this conviction and realization that I need to provide here. And so that was kind of my entrance into it. And then it was really great entering a firm that was Christian and holistically looking at financial stuff from a Christian perspective. And it kind of gave me that freedom that like, okay, this isn't wrong to pursue more wealth in I was going to say a worldly sense. I don't think that's the right word, but just a materialistic sense that it's not sinful to have money. It's wrong to be greedy, as we're talking about in this first one. We have 6 other ones that we're going to get to, but that we can pursue this from a holistically biblical perspective. So yeah, it's a good question. Any other thoughts on greed?
No, I think we're good to move on to the next one.
I was saying earlier, I think greed is, it's like the granddaddy financial sin, and in some ways, it's a little bit like the disease. And the rest of these that we're going to cover in some ways are symptoms of the disease. So I think all of these can kind of come back to greed. But as kind of a general overview, I think greed is a good first one to hit. And then we'll kind of probably continue to touch on some aspects of greed as we hit some of these next ones. So the next one is reckless spending and waste. I'm going to read Proverbs 21:20. Can you pull up Luke 15:13 while I do this one? There's 2 verses that I think would be helpful when we're talking about reckless spending.
And then I have a third, and I just want to point out that I brought my actual Bible this time.
I see that, and I forgot.
Guilt.
None of us are perfect, as we're talking about.
He indirectly guilted me into it last time, and then I did it.
All right, Proverbs 21:20 says, "Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it."
And then Luke 15:13 says, "Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living." And I actually have one more I'm going to pull up, so feel free to...
Yeah, that's obviously the prodigal son story that we're probably all familiar with, demanding his share of the inheritance before his dad's even dead or close to being dead, and going and immediately spending it all recklessly. There's no financial wisdom in what the younger son did in that situation.
And then the last one that I like that I think applies here as well is Proverbs 27:23. Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds.
Yeah, it's hard to do that if you're impulsively and unwisely spending all of your money.
Yeah, and I think you can even fall into the trap of not knowing that you're recklessly spending just because you don't know the state of your flocks. You don't know that your expenses are actually much greater than your income. You're just using a credit card without even realizing that you're kind of recklessly spending.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably guilty of this in some degree that, I'll just put it on my credit card and not carefully track. Not that you need to, we're not saying that you have to track every single penny that's spent every single month and keep diligent books. I happen to do that because I have like OCD about it, which my wife doesn't love, but I can't help myself. I want to know that we're not overspending, and I think that's an important thing to just at least keep your eye on as you consider your month-to-month living expenses.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day. One of the questions that we like to ask with potential new clients is just kind of a lesson that you learned early about money. And somebody was telling me about their first job. They never made money before. They started making money, and they saw their first account statement or an account statement, and he saw $1,000 in his bank account. And it kind of made him a little bit lax. Like, I've never had $1,000. I'm rich. Mm-hmm. And he said after like 3 weeks of buying things that he wanted, he went to a store and his debit card was rejected. He was like, this can't be right. I have $1,000 in my account. He said he called his bank the next day, and they're like, yeah, you have $3 in your account now. He was like, I learned quickly that I have to keep track of what I'm spending compared to what I'm making.
That is a good lesson to learn early on. That's unreal. Yeah, I think we all, think about, you get a bonus. What do you do? Do you spend all that money right away? Do you not have a plan with it? Or tax returns is another good example. People that just, before the money even hits their bank account, they've spent it 10 different ways because they think of, I have a sudden windfall of cash. We think it would be wise to allocate that money appropriately and save some of it or all of it, certainly tithe some of that and give some of that back to the Lord as that recognize that he's blessed you with whatever that windfall is.
And I think that this can, when you think about the little sins that can lead to bigger sins, there are plenty of stories. I know a couple personally where the people are recklessly spending, and this kind of falls into both reckless spending and greed, because they want to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
And I know at least 2 stories where the people ended up having to figure out how to get money to recklessly spend and embezzled. And so that's where the small sin of not keeping track of your flocks and just spending way more than you make could lead to bigger sins.
Absolutely. And some sins that we'll also get to in a minute. I think, too, there's this tendency, I think, in all of us to some degree, I think we live our lives and end up overspending when we didn't even plan. Like, it's not a planned thing. Like, we just habitually spend, and there's always money in the account somewhere. So I'm just gonna put the credit card down. I think of the story of Cain and Abel because it talks about what they're giving to the Lord, and it says that Abel gave of the first fruits of his flocks to the Lord as a sacrifice, but Cain, it just says in the course of time he gave an offering to the Lord too. But it's pretty clear that Abel gave of the first fruits, and it says that God was pleased with that offering, but not Cain's. And then Cain ends up obviously killing Abel. But I think for us, what are we doing with the first fruits of the income that we receive? Is it money that we're spending right away, or are we thinking, okay, first and foremost, I'm going to give some of this back to the Lord. Then I'm going to save some of it, and then with everything else left over, that's my spending money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that you're keeping your priorities straight, obviously, is a big one. The other thing that I think one area where I don't quite agree with Dave Ramsey on is credit cards. You've mentioned credit cards a couple times. I think as long as you can keep good records, credit cards are fine. Yeah. I went on a vacation last year with my family where we used credit card points to pay for the airfare. But yeah, the big thing there is making sure that you're prioritizing how you're spending and just keeping track of how you're spending, so that you don't do things like this.
Right. I think a helpful thing that everybody could do is look back at whatever your spending accounts are, if it's a credit card or if it's your debit card, and look back just on the last month and highlight every single thing that you purchased that you don't think you needed to, that you might recognize and go, did I need this? No. I'm not saying there's never a time to buy wants. Like, there's needs and there's wants. You can absolutely spend money on wants, but consider if you feel in any way like, man, we're spending too much money. Well, look at what you're spending your money on. Is it mostly needs? Like, are your needs dominating your budget, or is your budget kind of full of a lot of wants? That might be time to consider whether or not it's time to pull back on some of the wants and prioritize the needs so you can kind of get back into a healthy financial cash flow situation.
Yeah, that good advice. I haven't done that, and I'm a little scared of what would happen if I did that. But yeah, good. Sounds like a good exercise.
Yeah. So we've done greed. That's reckless spending. The third one is usury or predatory lending, and this is lending somebody money and charging them interest in return. I think there's a lot of reasons this is not a wise thing to do and is even a sinful thing to do. So we can look at Exodus 22. Do you want to pull up Ezekiel 18:13? And I want to take Exodus 22. Verse 25 says, if you lend money to any of my people with you who is poor, you shall not be like a moneylender to him, and you shall not exact interest from him.
Yeah, in Ezekiel 18:13, says, kind of starts mid-sentence, says, lends at interest and takes profit, shall he then... Let me go back a little bit.
Yeah.
If he fathers a son who is violent, a shedder of blood, who does any of these things, though he himself did none of these things, who even eats upon the mountains, defiles his neighbor's wife, oppresses the poor and needy, commits robbery, does not restore the pledge, lifts up his eyes to the idols, commits abomination, lends at interest and takes profit, shall he then live? He shall not live. He has done all these abominations. He shall surely die. His blood shall be upon himself.
First thing, I got to stop eating snacks on top of mountains. Can't be doing that. But
doesn't matter if you can't get down that mountain because you need some energy. You can't do it up there.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. You go up that mountain fasted, and you stay fasted because otherwise we'll put you to death. It is wild. I mean, there's a lot of serious sins in here. He talks about shedding blood. So there's murder in here as well, which obviously in the Old Testament, there's commands for the consequences of that level of sin. But there's this guy that's committing all sorts of sins, and included in this is usury and charging interest on loans that he's lended to people. So what is the result of that? Death in the Old Testament law. So it's a serious thing. I don't know if you've loaned money to friends before, but I think the general, either give it as a gift or don't expect it back. I think there's a lot of relational dynamics at play here if we're talking about people that you're familiar with, friends or family that ask for money or you lend them money, to charge them interest on that in return would be a problem. And I think from your perspective as the lender, just having a mentality of I'm not going to get this back and not creating any kind of relational conflict here.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen it done a few weeks. I think one of the important things to keep in perspective is it says lends at interest and takes profit. Because I do think there's some opportunity cost to lending, and I don't think you should go in with a mindset of I must get this back or our friendship is over. But I also think this is kind of attacking you know what, I'm going to lend this to you, but you got to pay me back 20% interest per year. Right. Not because that's the opportunity cost, but because I just want to make money off of you. First of all, that shouldn't be a friend. Yeah. If they're greedy and just trying to make money off of you. But to the lender who is lending to friends and family, I think it's the message is don't try to use those people right. For your own personal gain.
Because there's a reason they're asking you in the first place. They're they're in a desperate situation, clearly. They
Right.
can't provide it on their own. So to try to extract more out of them as a result of it, there's that makes sense that would be that would be frowned upon in God's eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I also think that you can go into some situations, and we might get into this more with investments, but where you are asking a friend for a loan and there's the potential that you could provide them with profit, but going in with that understanding this is a loan kind of as an investment. And again, I think it's kind of where your heart is, there your treasure is also. It's keeping that mindset, keeping your heart right about what this is ultimately for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the lesson is if you have credit card debt that has a 20% interest, you don't have to pay that because we're not biblically commanded to. No, I'm just kidding. Don't take that as advice.
Yeah. Good luck. Let us know when you go to jail.
Yeah. If you are
or just lose everything.
If you're on the debtor side of this, and we'll get to debt in a few. That's another one example that we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you are on the debt side of things, it is your responsibility to pay that back. If you've loaned money, and they are charging you interest, even if you think that that's biblically unfair or unjust or whatever, it is your responsibility to pay that back with the interest that's being charged on it. You don't have any kind of freedom here to just, I don't have to pay that because God says that it's wrong to charge interest on this thing.
And you agreed to pay it back, so
yeah, that's on you.
You're going in with that understanding.
Yeah. Do you think there's other examples of that other people in normal working environments might experience where they might be overcharging a client for something, or could that fit into this as well?
I mean, shameless plug, I think you should always be looking at how your financial advisor is paid, and making sure that you're setting up your finances in a manner where it's working most efficiently for you, making sure that you're not paying 5 times the amount for something that you could be getting cheaper elsewhere, and being efficient in that manner. And on the other side, if you are in a position where you can provide a service at a profit but potentially do it more efficiently, that you should probably be convicted to try to do that for the betterment of friends and family and just society.
Yeah. What about somebody that you suspect is misusing? Let's say that there's a sad situation that we've heard before. Parents who have a child that has gone wayward and is not doing well and is constantly asking for money. And you begin to suspect that they're using the money on things that are not the needs, right? They're things that they really shouldn't be spending that money on. What are some things, if it's at that level of a relationship, like a parent with their child, what do you think would be the wise thing to do, and how to address that situation if you come to the realization, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, I think there are. It's interesting. There are a couple different ways to answer this. It's funny being in this industry and asking about estate plans. Probably 95% of people say, yeah, I'm just leaving my estate equally to each of my kids. Even when sometimes they have a wayward child. But that's just the default. This kid who is wayward might get $1 million one day, without even necessarily thinking about what that would do to them or how they could spend it. I think the default should be challenged more. Is that the best way to care for that child who's potentially struggling with drugs or something like that, and just providing them a huge windfall to blow on more self-destructive things? I think while a parent is living, it's probably more prudent to provide in ways that you have more control over. So if you have a child in need that's struggling with a variety of things, probably just potentially inviting them to live with you, or buying groceries for them instead of just providing them with money that they've potentially proven that they don't do well managing, or don't make good decisions, or buy terrible things with.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't think we're going we're not pastors or anything. I think that'd be something to discuss it with a pastor or a trusted spiritual leader. But I do think from a financial perspective, there might come a time when it might be wise to, especially if it's approached from the perspective of, can you lend me money? And there's this unspoken or even spoken, I will pay you back. But you realize over time that that's not happening at all. To go, okay, you know what? Let's say they ask for $100 to make it easy, easy math. I'm going to give you $50. It's not a loan; it's a gift. You can have that. I don't expect it back, but we can't keep doing this. This is the last time. But I'm not going to charge you. All the other loans are forgiven. Here's one final gift that I will give you, kind of with the expectation of may this help you get on your feet so that you can start to provide for yourself here, because this is an important thing that you need to learn. This can't continue indefinitely. So it's tough with the parent-child relationship. I can't even pretend to understand what that would be like, because it'd be really difficult. I love my kids. They're 3 and 1.5 years old, so I don't have to really worry about that right now. But yeah, it's a tough thing. And
right now, everything seems free to them.
Yes, it does. Go to the toy store and, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? No, absolutely not. Anything else on usury?
No, I think we're moving on to the next.
All right. That was number 3. So we've done greed, reckless spending, usury. Number 4, dishonest gain. Proverbs 11:1. And can you get Micah 6?
Yeah.
Proverbs 11:1 says, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight.
And Micah 6, 10, and 11. Can I forget any longer the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is accursed? Shall I acquit the man with wicked scales and with a bag of deceitful weights?
False weights and balances. No good.
No good. You know what? Just because I turned to Micah, that also reminds me of a couple verses before that. And it's the verse it's a very popular verse. The end of verse 8 says, what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? Obviously, dishonest gain is not doing justice.
Right. You can't do those 3 things if you're also holding false balances. So what are some examples in kind of modern times that people could be guilty of this particular sin?
Anytime that you're making something up or trying to be deceitful, kind of against the law, there are times where people are intentionally trying to underreport income so that they don't have to pay as much in taxes.
Yeah. So tax fraud is bad.
There are plenty of examples of that. There's also I've seen examples of people going through divorce where they try to kind of hide all of their income so that they don't have to pay their ex-spouse anything in the future. So yeah, times where you're lying about your profits and in order to essentially gain for yourself.
Yeah. I was talking with we were considering buying a house a while ago, and we was talking to a mortgage lender, and he was like, oh man, there's this program that you almost qualify for, but you're like a couple $1,000s in income over it. Do you think you could somehow get that less for, like, tell your boss to pay you a little less for a couple months just so we could prove that you make less money than to qualify for this program? And I was like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Thank you, but no thanks. So there's lots of ways. Obviously, the tax thing is, tax fraud, bad. Some level of tax avoidance through smart strategies is fine.
Yeah.
But if you're just straight up lying about things to get a better favorable tax treatment, that's no bueno. Can't do that. There's other ways that people do it, like pretty common with the advent of our phones and technology is just buying and selling things kind of secondhand. It's really easy to do that these days, whether it's through Facebook Marketplace or I don't think people use Craigslist anymore. That feels pretty outdated. But there's Poshmark for clothes, or again, I like I mentioned, I was a musician, so I used to buy and sell music gear on an app called Reverb. There's lots of ways to do this, and you could be misrepresenting things that you're selling. You could be hiding defects. You could be hiding things that are wrong with it. And this actually just happened to me. My son is about to turn 3, and so about a week ago, he's obsessed with all things landscaping. So we decided to buy him like a riding lawnmower, like a John Deere tractor thing that he could ride around the backyard, and found one on Facebook Marketplace. Was messaging the seller, asked about it, and said, "Hey, everything work well? Everything, it's in good condition?" And she said yes. So I went and drove an hour to go pick it up. The husband told me that he charged the battery right before I picked it up. So I tested the pedal out. The things ran fine. Took it home. And it's not really something that I could hide from my son for 2 weeks. So I just gave it to him the next morning. He was so excited. We take it out to the backyard. He starts riding it. And within 5 seconds, the thing dies. So the battery was completely shot. And I'm not accusing them of being dishonest in this in any way. I don't think they knew about it. But it's important if you're going to sell something to do your due diligence on your own stuff and make sure you're well aware of every single thing about it, including the defects, and disclosing all of those things, so that you're not selling something and kind of bait and switching the buyer and them discovering that they have something that's not working properly.
Yeah, I also recently tried to buy something on Facebook Marketplace. Person posted patio furniture for a very good price, but it seemed just high enough to be legit. So I messaged them and said, "Hey, can I come check it out?" They're like, "Oh, we're out of town this weekend. You can come check it out on Monday." I think it was a Saturday. I was like, "All right, great." And she was like, "But we need you to pay today, or we're going to keep the ad up, and whoever pays first will be the first to get it." And I was like, "You're not going to get money from me until I actually see the item."
Yikes.
Like, all right, we're just going to keep it up and let anybody else have it. And I told them to go for it. Like 10 minutes later, I went back and the post had been deleted. I think Facebook figured out it was a fraud. But yeah, make sure that you're doing your due diligence and don't be that person.
Yeah. And the old adage, buyer beware, still rings true. So if you're on the buyer side, I should have done more due diligence on my side, but it happens. I bought a new battery and it works great now, so he's very happy. There's also just like common things that you could do at your own job, like time theft, where you're just not taking longer breaks than you should be, or kind of not being totally productive. Not that you need to do it every single second of the working hours, but you kind of judge for yourself whether or not you're taking too much advantage of your employer's time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked at jobs where people would, get up and come back an hour later, and it wasn't lunchtime.
Right.
And they were just kind of, my first job was in Boston. They were just kind of walking around the city and meeting up with friends, things like that. And it was much more of a job where it wasn't active all the time, so it was easy to do it. But yeah, absolutely. Anytime that I've had extra time, I try to, I've tried in the past to go to my employer and say, "Hey, I have some extra time. Do you have any extra work for me to do?" So yeah, just always being respectful of what your employer is giving you and what is expected in return.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one's fairly obvious. Be honest.
Yeah.
Be truthful. Be transparent. And don't, just because you could earn an extra dollar, don't skirt some of the details. Anything else on that one?
No, I think we should move on to the next one.
All right, this one's going to be fun. The next one, number 5, is gambling. Also kind of in line with this is a more modern example would be get-rich-quick schemes and falling in some of those traps. So let me read Proverbs 28:20. Which says, "A faithful man will abound with blessings, but whoever hastens to be rich will not go unpunished." I think the key word there is hastens. We're not saying that in any way that being rich is necessarily wrong or sinful, not at all, but it's are you trying to get rich quick is kind of what that one's saying.
Yeah, and then 1 Timothy 6, 9 through 10, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. So yeah, again, it's not the actually being rich, it's the focusing on trying to get rich.
And the methods in which you're trying to.
Yeah, and why you're doing it, yeah, absolutely.
The other day it was just like a week ago, I went to a 7-Eleven, and it was like middle of the day on like a Thursday, and I needed to get cash from an ATM. And next to the ATM were like 4 lottery machines that had stools in front of them. Like I don't know much about the modern state of the lottery. I always thought you just buy a lottery ticket and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
But they had stools in front of them, and every single stool was occupied by somebody. And they're just sitting in front of these big, bright machines with touch screens and all these fun graphics. And it was a really sad thing to see because they clearly weren't working that day in any kind of job. They were just sitting there, and I don't know how much money they were spending, but they were surely trying to get those dopamine hits of like, this next one is the one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been to a casino, but it's the same thing when you just see somebody plopped in front of a what do they call it? Slot machines.
Machine,
Yeah. Like pull that handle over and over and over and over and over again, and how much money they're spending pulling that handle.
Yeah. There are. I know there are different views within the Christian church on gambling. I think that I've gambled before, so I'm not one that thinks that any moment you gamble you are sinning. But I know plenty do. But I think the important thing, or at least my conviction, is that again the desire to get rich quick is the sin through gambling. I've been to a casino before, and whenever I've gone, I walk in with an amount of money that I know I can lose, and that I'm willing to lose, and that it isn't going to wreck me if I lost it. It's really not a whole lot. And in that manner, every time I've gone with friends. It's just a fun time to enjoy some card games or something like that.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think that's the big difference. I think it's, if you're going in to sit down and, today is the day that I'm going to be set for life versus, hey, I'm going in, just going to enjoy myself, play some games. Do you agree?
Yeah. We're not talking about like poker nights with your buddies, because I've done that too, and it's just $10 buy-ins and have fun for the night, just hanging out with your friends. And I've been to a casino too, and or there's sports betting, like going into it with this set mentality of like, I'm not trying to win a lot of money right now, or even any money. I'm actually completely and totally prepared to lose all of this money. Which it's, you could debate the wisdom of that, but if it's a small reasonable amount that you could theoretically afford to lose, and you're doing it because you're having fun with some friends, I don't see anything wrong with that. And when you get into the trap, and you see this with people that struggle with gambling addiction, they lose that set amount of money, even if they went in with that, I'm only going to spend $50 this time. Well, what happens when they lose that $50?
ATM.
They go to the ATM and they get another $50 out, right? So that's where you start getting into this is no longer I'm just having fun, because you're clearly not having any fun. You won't have any fun until you win that money. And so if you can't do it without feeling like I have to win, it's probably a sin for you. If you can do it and go, I'm going to lose this. I'm fully prepared for that. Then I think you could probably proceed with being careful and with wisdom.
Yeah. Versus I spent the amount that I would have if I went to a movie and bought some popcorn and a drink.
Right.
I could do that with friends, or I could go play some card games with friends. Yeah. I think it's all in the perspective.
Yeah. Some other things that you could be doing here that would fall into this sinful trap is like kind of modern examples are like MLMs, like multi-level marketing schemes that a lot of people fall for, or I see a lot on social media, like a lot of affiliate marketing things that I think not necessarily this is inherently wrong and sinful in and of itself, but I think it can be because you're promised, hey, just sell my ebook on how to build a business and you will get rich off of it. But really you're just perpetuating this like you end up just selling this book for somebody else, and you're trying to get other people to sell the book for you, and then you're trying to get other people, and it's its own multi-level marketing thing, and there's no real value anywhere other than we're just selling this one product at the top, and everybody at the top is getting rich.
We all want to get rich, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's I think it's taking advantage of people's vulnerabilities and taking advantage of people's desires to earn money, but to do it in an easy way that, hey, this is no work at all. All you have to do is just promote this book and sell it, blah, 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 blah. And then people end up, it's only $10 to buy into my course, and then you can start selling it. Like, that's where you start getting into some weeds there. I think an easy way to kind of determine whether or not this is a legitimate thing is the person that is trying to get you to sell this product for them, are they asking you for money to sell it? Like, hey, if you just buy my course for $100, then you can sell it and you can make money yourself. That's, to me, that seems suspicious.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. The other one that I think with the advent of trading apps like Robinhood is day trading, using leverage, things like that, using options. I think most people have a friend who say they've been wildly successful at trading, and you can get the temptation of, oh, if I just start trading, I can be wildly successful and wildly rich. But things like options can wreck you if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So again, don't go in with the mindset of, you know what, I can place this one trade and I'm set for life. Know what you're trading and how to do it and what could happen if it goes wrong. And keep that perspective of, you know what, I'm doing this not to get rich quick. I'm doing it to try to be a little bit more productive with my money, and I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I'm getting into, and all the pitfalls.
At Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, do we try to, for all of our clients or just for ourselves personally, really try to time the market right so that we can hit big on certain investments?
No, not at all. We're not trying to time the market. We're trying to help clients achieve their objectives and goals, and setting them up with a portfolio that will help them do that best. We're not trying to help anybody hit it really big, and we're not trying to help anybody win the lottery through investing. We just want to support people and their families and organizations and their mission, and do that by being productive with your money.
On that same note, what about, so there's gambling yourself and trying to get rich off of your own gambling efforts. What about investing, or I should say it this way, profiting off of other people that are gambling and spending their money at the slot machines or on the DraftKings app?
Yeah, so we don't do that either at Stonecrop. A lot of the companies that profit most are off of gambling are profiting off of like the 5% that are spending ridiculous amounts on gambling, and really using those people. And we're trying through our investing, we're trying to help make the world a better place. Profiting off of the gambling addicts does not do that.
So in the S&P 500, as far as I know, there's two holdings that are portfolios of casinos. There's MGM Resorts and there's Caesars. And so I'll read Proverbs 1:19, which says, "Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors." I think profiting off of people's vulnerabilities, and though they got into that situation potentially and probably sinfully themselves, to profit off of that is wicked. And yeah. I think it's eye-opening to know that for all of us that might have an S&P 500 index, those two holdings are in there. That there are companies that are profiting off of these people. In the NASDAQ, DraftKings is one of those there as well. Again, you could theoretically sports bet without sinning, but I think the majority of their funds are probably from people that spend a lot of money that are
probably going bankrupt. Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, addicted to it.
Yeah.
They can't stop. They have to keep betting more because the rush that they feel when they win one is so intoxicating that they can't stop it. But B, they're just like, I need it. I've spent all this money. I need to make that back now and then some. And it just keeps fueling the problem. So if you have an S&P 500 index or you're in the NASDAQ at all, just be aware that those companies are in there. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah. All right, we have two more we need to move a little bit more quickly through these ones. So the sixth one, and I think this one might be the most. I was about to say the most important one, but can you pull up 1 Timothy 5:8?
Yeah.
And it's failure to provide for your family. So I think this one will direct perhaps a little bit more towards the men who are called. Not that women don't provide for their families in many ways, but when it comes to the financial aspect of it, I think the burden more in Scripture falls on the man to be the one that is the provider for the family. Not that women can't work or anything like that, but that this responsibility lies on the man. So can you read 1 Timothy 5:8?
Yeah, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Those are pretty strong warnings, strong words. Worse than an unbeliever. And
we know what happens to unbelievers.
Right. So I think ways that you could be guilty of this sin is, the obvious ones is like, do you have a job at all?
Right.
A, do you have a family to provide for?
Yeah.
But B, do you have a job?
Are you lazy? Do you depend on other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think ambition ties into this as well. Like, I think that in some ways in modern Christianity, men in particular have been guilted into thinking that ambition is wrong, that it's wrong to be to pursue excellence in your field or in your career, to climb the ladder, so to speak. And I think we need to kind of put an end to that type of thing and go, no. You were a man designed to do this. You were a man that God put in you this, the desire, but also the responsibility to provide for your family. So go do that. Go chase after that and chase after it hard, being honest in all of your endeavors. But that is not at all wrong. So I think guys can get lazy in just even in their own careers and be not necessarily they're providing, but they're drifting into I'm perfectly content with where I'm at. And that could be a sign that you might be venturing into this territory. Not that you're completely there, but that you could be heading down that road if you're just not willing to take steps at work to continue to improve your family situation.
The one thing, and I've seen this on the flip side, to avoid is being so ambitious that you're not providing in other ways for your family because you don't see them.
Right.
You're working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and you're just never home.
Right. So there's that tension that we have to, and Billy McFarland, going back to the cold opening, is a great example of ambition gone wrong. Mm-hmm. You can have selfish ambition and godly ambition are two different things. Yeah. And I think we need to be clear on that. They can look similar at times, but they become clearly different as the ends are realized. That the selfishly ambitious person will go to any length possible to achieve what they're trying to achieve, financially and otherwise. Whereas the godly ambitious person holds it with an open hand and entrusts the Lord with their lives and says, Lord, whatever you have for me, I'm content with. But I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna work as hard as I can to provide well for my family.
Yeah.
Because if you can't provide for your family, how will you be generous? How will you be able?
Right.
How can you tithe? How can you do any number? How can you save for the future? Like if you can't even do the base needs of your family, that there's many other things that God's calling you to that you're not going to be able to do. All right, finally, we're going to talk about debt briefly, becoming a slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7 talks about this, and I think the main point here is that not all debt is sinful. I think most people have mortgages.
Yeah.
It's not that, but what is your debt that you do have? What is it rooted in? Is it just discontentment? Are you piling up credit cards because you need more stuff? Are you buying way too expensive cars because you want to look cool to your friends? You're buying the Cybertrucks or the Porsches or whatever people are buying, and that you can't afford. It's not wrong to buy those things if you can afford, if you have the means to do it. But if you have no means to, or you're with car payments in particular, people just extend these things out for years and years and years and years and years just to get a lower monthly payment. Which again, that's not always wrong, but I think it's an example of ways that you're just trying to look wealthy or maybe trying to show off. Like there's lots of ways that you can get into trouble with debt, obviously.
Yeah, and I think one of the helpful things is what is backing that debt? Because I think if you've got an asset that's backing all of that debt, then you're not really a slave because I could sell my house and all of a sudden I'm debt free.
Yeah.
But if I have $15,000 on credit cards and there's nothing I can sell in order to pay that back, then I'm a 100% slave to that lender.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that, again, it all comes down to what you want your lifestyle to look like to other people. Are you just trying to impress people, or are you doing this because this is an actual need that your family will benefit from? Because there might be times when you do need to go into debt to, our family really needs a car, and we have so many kids, so it needs to be a big car. So you end up needing to do that, and if you're not going to pay for it all in cash, they're not cheap things, and nor do you want to buy the cheapest one possible because you want safety and all these things. There's lots of things to consider when it comes to your debt. So yeah, we're not saying that all debt is wrong. Some financial people might say that, but we certainly don't think that way. So, any other thoughts on debt?
I think we're good.
Sort of plowed through those last ones because we're kind of coming to the end of our time here. But I think it's important to just recognize all sin starts small. And we don't want to give the enemy a foothold in our financial life by allowing these little things to creep in and continuing to grow over time. So we want to be careful here. We want to be wise. We want to honor the Lord here. So,
yeah, and ultimately it's all God's, and He's entrusting us with this. He can give and He can take away, and it's not up to us to keep up with the Joneses.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully today wasn't all about, not just trying to heap guilt on everybody. We wanted it to be just eye-opening and hopefully helpful into thinking about how to walk in freedom in your finances. That was really our goal here. But if you enjoyed the episode today, like or subscribe, whatever they say. Smash that like button, as the kids say. Visit stonecropadvisors.com if you want to know more about our financial planning firm. And if you want to work with us, we'd be happy to talk about that. But we pray that the Holy Spirit would be at work in all of our lives and helping us to live more holistically financially.
Investment advisory services offered through Stonecrop Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. This material is intended for informational purposes only.